Hello, everyone. Thank you for your time and joining this webinar today. As usual, I'm your host, Dr. Shah Siddiqui from Neurodiversity Business Consortium, and we will cover one special topic today. And this is my favorite topic because the way I have spent my childhood, my struggles, my families, my mother, my society, and a lot of different things we can talk about it. It's endless discussion. But the good thing is, we have learned, I have learned, and I have created my mechanism to be successful. So that's why I'm here. And today we have two special guests to support me, as well as they are working enormously in the community in the UK and globally to support neurodivergent individuals. So if you are watching this webinar through LinkedIn and other social media, feel free to ask us any comments or anything you have through the comment box and support our work. And I will add our guests one by one. So first, we have Veronica, and I'm working with her long time, and the work she's doing. It's I cannot say I cannot comment on her work because the way she's supporting local people. She will describe her work in detail. I will not get into the detail now. And the second guest we have Susie Grady, um, as well as she's working so hard to support neurodivergent people in the community, nationally and locally. So I would ask Veronica to introduce yourself, please. If you could introduce yourself to our audience, specifically who you are and what work you do, that would be fabulous.
Thank you, Shah. Yes. So hi, everyone. I'm a retired GP and have worked in general practice locally in Southsea in Portsmouth, where I live, for about 30 years. So a lot of experience of NHS and face-to-face contact with the local population. And my interest in neurodivergence and autism in particular arose because of my son, who's now 31 and still living at home with me. And during his journey through school, as is very often the case, it became increasingly clear that he didn't behave like his peers. And a very perceptive Year 5 teacher, who I am always eternally grateful to, highlighted some strange characteristics and mannerisms, which led to a very expensive clinical psychology assessment, which just really highlighted that he had a spiky profile, but that he wasn't frankly neurodivergent or autistic in terms in which it was understood at the time. This is about 20 years ago now. To be different, increasingly so, and increasingly unlike his peers. And at about the age of 14, he had a formal referral to what was the Child and Mental Health CAMS resource locally. And there it became quite clear from his history, from interviewing him, from observing him, from our story, that he was clearly autistic and what they called Asperger's at the time. And so there we were, landed with a label and a diagnosis and a sort of merry wave of the hand. Then from then on began my journey to understand my son, most particularly, front and foremost, but also this world of autistic people and otherness. And along the way, I joined what was then the Portsmouth Autism Board, which was the only community accessible resource where people searching for some answers about autism could go free and just listen and speak. This developed into what is now the Portsmouth Autism Community Forum, which I'm happy to report is a very active community-based, co-produced body, completely unaffiliated and unfunded, but in that way independent and above and beyond any statutory city council input or restrictions. And along the way, somehow I got asked to be chair of this forum, and I have been ever since. So that's over the last, coming up to 6 years. So we're busy on the forum with many different activities, all to support and all informed by autistic people locally. And in addition to that, I run a social group for autistic adults, both identified and self-identified, which is growing and growing. We started with 3 people in a pub, now got on average 24 people coming every Monday evening to a community centre. And we look to expand that and develop what we are able to offer. So I learn from those people a very great deal. I learn from the people I support through the forum, and I learn every day from my son. And thinking about today's topic, specifically about mental health, I think I'm fortunate that my son has not particularly struggled as many autistic neurodivergent people do, but boy, has he had some anxiety issues. And, you know, looking back and reflecting on what I now know about him and about the autistic brain and world, I would have managed things differently. I think I would have just been better informed and kinder and more helpful to him. But I'm very happy that he's come through and he's working and pretty independent in as much as he's. That's me. I'm very happy to be here today. Thank you.
Thank you, Veronica. As we working together, and we know many people, they struggle, and we struggled, and now awareness building and supporting this community is happening. I think 10 times faster than the previous decades because more people are aware of it, and we have that support bubble in place, and we don't fear that if we have neurodiversity, if we are neurodivergent, because that's their strength. We're going to talk more. So, to our viewers, thank you very much for joining today. We're going to be talking today mental health in children, neurodivergent children. So, we have another guest, Susie Grady. So, I will ask her to introduce herself and let our audience know about her work.
Hi, it's lovely to have been invited to this event. So my name's Susie and I'm a physiotherapist by background, but our journey into this world of neurodivergence and mental health began during lockdown one weekend, which I'm sure is one that everyone can remember very well, which is when my child also began puberty. And on that weekend, things started to deteriorate quite rapidly at home, and we became unable to keep her safe at home. She was struggling with eating, with sleeping, with keeping herself safe, and she had quite disordered thinking around family life at this time. So it began our journey into first of all, our local general hospital, then into a Tier 4 CAMS unit locally, then back home again, then into another Tier 4 CAMS unit in Cambridgeshire. Then we were then she was sent into supported living in Southampton. We then entered into the University Hospital Southampton. And during this time, she was seen by 7 consultant psychiatrists and roughly 14 paediatricians. But it wasn't until we got to the University Hospital Southampton that we were seen finally by a paediatrician who kind of saw everything from the beginning differently and said, I believe that she may have premenstrual dysphoric disorder, which means that every time her hormones changed during the monthly cycle, she was having significant mental health issues. And because of him, we were finally seen by a gynecology team, and the gynecology team were then able to help her with medication, as in the contraceptive pill, which means that she's now able to live at home, she's able to go to college, she's able to lead a normal life. And she's also now transitioning to be male. So if I refer to her as a she or a he during this topic, this conversation, that kind of explains why. But she would like to be identified as a he, him now. So my experience is lived experience of mental health services in this country, of dealing with an autistic child in some of these places, which is incredibly difficult, and things that I've found that have helped. So resources that are available often online or through charities that can help you through what is an absolutely horrific experience for any family to go through. So thank you.
Thank you, Susie. We share our experiences, and we think sharing our experiences will support another person in the community. Why? Because they would have maybe similar experiences with our children, with themselves, and maybe known people. So I would request our audience to share your experiences online, as well as we run regular program like Veronica, as well as Susie. They run their own program. So if you wanted to know more about neurodiversity, autism, and other spectrum, uh, and you wanted to contribute, feel free to contact them directly or NBC, as we are the brand ambassador of Neurodiversity, because we think that the more talk we would do, and the more help will aid to the people. Because most of us, like Veronica said, we don't have funding, we don't get funding. So in that instances, we have to spend our own money working somewhere, and then spend a bit of money for the awareness that our community, our future generation, they can live a happy life. Thank you, Susie and Veronica, for joining today. And to our audience, if you wanted to ask us any question, feel free to ask us through the comment box. We just had a first uh, uh, greetings from Mahbub, and he said, "Welcome to Dr. Veronica and Susie." And we will have a very interesting session today, talk about neurodiversity and mental health in children. So, first of all, I just wanted to share my experiences. When I was child, I did not know that I was autistic and dyslexic. But my childhood wasn't good, and I always asked the same questions that my son is asking at the moment: "What's wrong with me?" And no one could answer. I had mental health problems, but the way, in Asia, our parents, they do not have any clue what is neurodiversity, what is neurodivergent. So it wasn't a pleasant development for me, and I am proud to say that I was neurodivergent, and I am neurodivergent. So that's why it came to this stage, because I have some extra strength, I have some extra thing that make me different. So if my son asking me now why I'm different, I just tell him because our genetic modulations, mutations is different. God created us in a way to make this world different. So that's why we are different. So work well, and then you will see how we can make this world um, a momentum for many people. So I would ask Veronica if you could share something that you have experiences so far, why we are different, and why neurodivergent people needed in the community for future sustainable um, uh, development and growth.
The whole concept of neurodiversity, and that the human race has neurological differences, and that the people now recognize as neurodivergent are merely one slice of the pie, and just as valid as any of the rest of the pie, even though they may be numerically in smaller numbers, but they're still significant numbers. We reckon neurodivergent people in total, so this includes autism, ADHD, Tourette's, dyslexia, dyspraxias, many others sort of in decreasing numbers. ADHD, a very big one, very topical at the moment. This maybe 20% of the population are, come into that category, and it is, it was always there. There's a lot of talk about this sudden surge in diagnosis of ADHD, and some people, I think, rather cruelly refer to the convenience of having a diagnosis of ADHD, the convenience of having a nice label, which means you are given some medication which may not help you, and consideration in academic situations, time in exams, etc. I don't think any true ADHD individual or autistic individual would ever say that it was something, a badge of pride. I mean, that it was something that you would pretend to be if you genuinely were not that sort of person. It's like saying, a dog would rather be a cat. I mean, it is bizarre. It's so strange. So I think we're underdiagnosing. I think there are very many. There are very, very many more than we're picking up. And of course, very, very sadly, and I'm sure Susie's been exposed to this horror, the waiting times for diagnostic pathways and identification are truly unacceptable. And with very little, to fill in the gap while you're waiting your 2, 3, 4 years. And most particularly for children who are developing and changing and trying to, know who they are in this world, find their identity. A week, a month is an extremely important period of time. A lot is changing in a child's life in that time. Lots of things are becoming embedded and imprinted. And if it's the wrong thing, if the wrong messages, if the wrong diagnosis is being implanted, embedded, it takes an awful lot to shift that. And I meet so many adults who've been identified as neurodivergent as adults who just so wish that those years were not, that they, missed up to the point of diagnosis, had not been so blighted by not knowing who you are. And I think what you say, Shah, I thoroughly buy into that. You need to know who you are. We all need to know who we are in every respect, who we are, what we're good at, what our skills are, what our niche is, whatever the heck it is, and there should be room for all of it. And I think, society is still waking up to the concept. I still meet a lot of friends, parents of children who resist taking them down the path of diagnosis. And from everything I've read and the people I've talked to, and the first-hand accounts of autistic and neurodivergent people, it seems to me quite clear. It's very tipped towards benefit to know who you are, to know why you don't mirror your peers. You know why you're interested in certain things. You know why you're uncertain about your gender identity, and that is a very big overlap. And it's interesting, Susie, that your own child is, that's so prevalent. We know from the Tavistock Clinic records and the revelations what a huge overlap there is between neurodivergent identity and gender searching, looking for and seeking to change. So yeah, I'm with you on the identification wholeheartedly, but I mean, you can't force people to do that. And I know people will just say, "Oh, my child is my child." They don't need to know. And you watch a child struggle because increasingly, and little kids can get away with it because they bounce around together, and until the brains are maturing, till puberty hits, till adolescence hits, when boy does the various things hit the fan. You can get away with it, but then you're becoming this definite identity. And if you don't know why you're the way you are, but everybody around you is doing something different, it's the path to confusion at the very least.
I totally agree with you, Veronica, because the way my mother helped me, that she told me most of the time that don't think about what other people say. What you are good at, do that work. That will give you success. The one thing I brought up all the time, that okay, do the things that is right for me and not harming other people, will give me the right way for my development. And you can see where I am now. And I think mostly when we talk about parents and other and their children, neurodiversity and others, some parents they're afraid to know or to accept that their children are neurodivergent, because there are not rightful research over there to show that neurodivergent person are different than neurotypical person, because this is the genes that making great things. So when people see that there are a lot of scientists, a lot of business people, and a lot of different individuals have their life settled due to neurodiversity, they will know, they will feel proud, and they will see, okay, my son or my daughters are neurodivergent, and I'm proud of it. So I will bring Susie at this point to uh, talk about the same topic, that why neurodivergent people, we need neurodivergent people in the community, and we need to give them right support to make a momentum.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, my child is, in my opinion, the best child there is. So I celebrate her, as I call it, her quirkiness or weirdness, which is how it initially presented as a small child. And I would say, obviously, one of the big issues that we faced is that because girls mask their autism in particular, it wasn't picked up at school at all. And really, lockdown was kind of a perfect storm, because all the things that she had been using to regulate with, such as swimming, school, routines, were all completely got rid of overnight for no apparent reason that she could understand. All of the things she enjoyed doing were gone. So there's no wonder that now we're facing this huge mental health tsunami in our country of children who were not diagnosed before lockdown, and then lockdown has just caused this kind of nuclear bomb to go off, and none of the services in this country were set up to cater for this huge number of children who are now presenting with significant mental health issues. So the fact that girls mask is a huge issue that society, we just haven't recognised that they're all there. Because she was academically able to keep up with her peers, and because she was somebody who never gets into trouble, she's not a perfect child by any stretch, but she's somebody who will avoid being punished or getting into trouble. The school had no reason to say anything. And I had no reason to think that there was any issue. But then when lockdown and puberty happened in the same weekend, there quite clearly was things that she was significantly struggling with and that she'd hidden from people. But she couldn't hide them any longer because they just totally overwhelmed her. So it was quite obvious that there was some really serious issues going on. So it's important to understand, and it's important to try and get a diagnosis for a child, because it enables the parents to understand what things you might have to tailor to that child, which unfortunately we hadn't done in our family at all until it was too late.
I totally agree with you, because when I am neurodivergent, so I know the mental health support I can give it to my son or my wife or someone else they are related to me. But when a parents they don't have any clue, okay, how they can tailor this support, because they're going to be like, if I give an example, like, okay, my son, uh, he likes to have 2 3 different things at the same time. Whenever he is doing his education, he is doing his food, he is doing anything, so he has to have 2 3 individual things happening at the same time. I know that, and I aid that, because I know if I want him to do a particular task, I have to aid him his environment, I would say.
Yeah.
But some parents, they will say, okay, if I give our children this environment, they are saying it, they're lying. Maybe they don't want it to do the task or work they wanted to do. Then it kicks the mental health problem, because they cannot concentrate. And then, as a parent, you just force your children to do things they cannot do, aiding. So, what is, in your opinion, Veronica, to support our children if we see this kind of, we don't know that, okay, our children or our child, they are neurodivergent or not, but when we see this trend that, okay, they cannot concentrate, or they want more things to happen at the same time, or maybe different trends in their characteristics, how do you recognize them? How do you give them proper support?
There are such pressures, aren't there? There are such pressures to conform, and to the role models young children have increasingly are just not good for a lot of autistic kids. And the idea, you're right, of sort of prescribing screen time, which, you know, is obviously a big deal. But I know for my son, like you, he has 3 things going on at any one time. And that's absolutely fine for him. And that, you know, for an awful lot of autistic people, the screen is the only solace they have. It's the only reliable, you know, steady, stable, predictable world they can go into, and they need it. And they need it for their mental health. I mean, the cost to our children, the cost to, and I think what my son was made to go through at school, the ridiculous things for an autistic child are crazy. To be made to study a foreign language, what a pointless waste of time. But not only a pointless waste of time, but he's perpetually being reminded he's not good at something. And you know, then he's told to ask questions to make himself better at this ridiculous pursuit, when, you know, it's the last thing autistic kids actually know how to do. They don't know how to ask for help because they don't know what it is you're wanting them to do better. There's so much. I think these pickles, these, you know, these are tiny snapshots of life for an autistic person, but they accumulate, and we know it's terribly common to have this complex PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder situation, in, you know, already accumulating in children. And these are microaggressions and micro challenges which really, really traumatize them, happening over and over and over again, repeatedly. So, you know, a child who's trying to sort of struggle with all of that going on, you know, affecting their health, to then take away the one solace, which, as you say, is multiple screens, is whatever fascinates them, is whatever they need to do to function, you know, that is cruelty. And I think, you know, this is what, you know, Susie's lived it. I mean, I've lived it to a degree. I think my son had certainly anxiety, and I could recognize, you know, there were mannerisms he would exhibit. And of course, until I knew why he was picking the backs of his hands or flipping and stimming, you know, it didn't make sense to me. But when you see what it means to a child, you know, when it's an autistic child, neurodivergent child, these mannerisms, these stims, these solaces to them, you must not take them away. And, you know, you're right, parents need to be given the license to let the child do what is good for that child. And I'm afraid, you know, schools are terribly restrictive for so many autistic kids. And these dilemmas, these traumas come out, don't they, in the school setting, if it's not understood that let them go to the loo when they need to, let them leave the class when they need to, you know, let them do what they need to when they need to, because it means they can survive. But of course, every child, you know, as we all know, it's individual. You can't prescribe the same remedy for, you know, even 2 children perhaps in the same class, things. So it's got to be very fine. And I think you have to listen, you have to focus in on that one in front of you at that time, and not be bombarded, not be bamboozled by all the myths and stereotypes. So every child wants to do this, every autistic child does this thing this way. Well, they just don't, you know. And unless you focus in and listen to the parents as well, listen, hear the stories, you know, hear it from the horse's mouth and get it right. I mean, Susie, you must have been through so many of these confrontations. I mean, there's that terrible trauma of your child going through all that hospitalization. And, you know, every single one of those encounters, they're bound to have met at least one person who really didn't get it and did something.
You might have something to share, you know, at this point, your experiences, why it is important to listen to your children and understand what they are going through.
Yes, well, it's vital, but unfortunately, the education system and the NHS in this country are both not able to cater for flexible thinking. So the education system in this country wants all children to have got their 9 or 10 GCSEs by the age of 16, and then 3 A levels by the time they're 18. And the NHS is designed to put people into a pathway of care. But if you don't fit into those pathways of care, or you're not able to get your GCSEs by the age of 16, you're made to feel that you are a failure or a problem. And this then leads to really significant issues amongst the child, the family, and everybody else associated with the child, because nobody should be made to feel like they're a failure at the age of 16 just because they have autism and they don't have 9 GCSEs to their name. And also, nobody should be told that they're not allowed to enter a A&E department or a general hospital in this country because they have autism, as though it's some kind of choice that there's somewhere else I should be taking my child. But there isn't anywhere else in this country to take my child if she's in crisis. So I think the NHS and the education system in this country has to be completely revamped to cater for people who don't fit into their strict, rigid way of working.
I totally agree with you, but I just wanted to give an example that you mentioned that yes, when you talk to the school or TPs, they say they don't have funding, they don't have facilities and that's the heartbroken thing happen. So when my son he's going to his school and they don't have any facility or any extra members of staff to look after him, so he will ask specifically many questions and you will be giving time out because he is talking too much. But this is his characteristic. He will ask questions again and again to make sure that he is doing the right thing. And it's for me as well. Even if I work with individual clients or at the university or mentoring someone, I will ask them the question at least 3 times that, okay, this is I meant. Did you understand what I meant? And what do you want from this? Or what you want me to do? Clear and precise that, okay, Shah, I want, if I is the line manager, I ask him, give me clear direction, what you want, and the outcome or the outputs you wanted to achieve. It has to be very bullet points, and then give it to me, and then I understand, okay, that it means this. But working with individual people, sometimes they fail to understand it, that we need clear directions, and you would ask questions again and again. That time the mental health kick in, like, okay, I'm in a problem. So in this kind of situation, what would be the best scenario, or what would be the best suggestion from you, Veronica, because you work as a GP, you are working with many young people at the moment, so getting advice or completing tasks accordingly, what would be the scenario here to have less mental health problems?
I really do think it comes down to the individual, and I think we're too ready to batter people. I have learned to stand right back and ask questions 3 times. I would say to people, carers, guardians, parents of an autistic individual, don't batter them. Give them time. I've learned with my son, if I say the question and I don't get an answer, and then I say it again, actually the confusion deepens for him. Why are you saying it again? What's changed? But there's processing time, isn't there, which is crucial. Mm-hmm. It's how in every situation, you give them time to sort of be relaxed enough and trustful enough to say what it is they need from you, in every situation. I think, as you say, Susie, everything's so prescribed, everything's such an algorithm-led, pathway-led. Well, they don't, actually not a lot of, even neurotypical people don't all fit into pathways, and it drives me mad. The sort of the diagnostic drop-down lists we get all the time. And the questionnaires, so much of what we use to identify and assess, mental health, particularly we're talking about now, depression, anxiety, say, that the tools we use are just so completely inappropriate. It's almost like go back to the ground zero, and just let the person talk to you. The best sort of autistic research going on at the moment into mental health and into these areas is very much led by autistic people themselves. It's not the expert top-down stuff we've been blighted with, all these years, which has caused the sort of the pickle we're in at the moment. But the there's a redefining how an autistic person's anxiety is not like a neurotypical person's anxiety. Their depression is not the same. Their suicide risk is not the same. It's not expressed in the same way. So it cannot be assessed in the same way. And the trouble is, all our tools, and as you say, in these sort of standard conventional NHS pathways, everything's done from a neurotypical viewpoint. So it just doesn't fit. How do you assess pain? How do you assess pain? Give me a, you come to me, A&E, you poor autistic person with a terrible pain, or you say you're in pain. Well, on a scale of 0 to 10, where would you say you were? Well, this moment and it depends who's talking to me and whether I've had a pill and what's happening next and what the pain means. These are meaningless and unfruitful ways of talking to people. And I think this blights every encounter that we have. You're right, in this context of this talk, very much mental health. The way we assess the mental health of autistic people is just misdirected. It's not a language they recognize because they didn't think of it. They didn't tell us how they're beginning to. And this is what we need. We need autistic, neurodivergent, informed research into these areas to tell us how we get it right in the future. And I think you're right, Susie, education, big time too, very much.
I will bring Susie at this point.
Yeah, I've got the perfect example of what Dr. Veronica's talking about. So when my child becomes anxious above a certain level, she becomes non-verbal. And the number of times we were in A&E departments and I could see, was so overwhelmed, she had become non-verbal, which meant she was unable to speak. And even after explaining it to professionals, they kept asking her questions. And I said, there's no point in you keep asking the same questions. She's non-verbal. She is unable to speak. And they'd ask it again. And we'd just go on like this. And they'd look at me like I was completely bonkers. What do you mean she cannot speak? She can't speak. She's so anxious now. And the next thing that will happen is she will then start to run. So have you locked the doors? Because she will run. And they looked at me like I was completely mad. So I used to have to just completely take charge of the situation as best as I could to keep her safe, because the people around me who were the professionals tasked with looking after her didn't understand her behaviour or what she was doing.
I totally agree with you.
Dangerous. It's a very dangerous situation you get into in an A&E department, because the people there completely don't understand the way that she's reacting. They think that the parent is completely bonkers. And you're then trying to keep a child safe in what is a really dangerous environment because it's full of sharp objects and glass.
Yeah, I totally agree with you, Susie, because sometimes we have qualified people behaving like unqualified because they have to deal a neurodivergent individuals, and they will deal with it. Okay, they know each individual because as a human being, 9 billion people in this world, every individual is different. So if you try to understand them, maybe they will have some common characteristics and they will some individual characteristics. So common characteristics for neurodivergent people is okay. They will some spectrum common thing, but most of them will have uncommon things, the way you say it. Do our professional people, health professionals, GPs and other, they understand there isn't any awareness of that, and there isn't any databases or other enough research with neurodivergent people that they can learn and they can understand individually, and they don't have the time. Another thing, because they know that each neurodivergent person is different with common and uncommon characteristics, but do they have time to go through with it? And that's the question. So to our viewers, if you wanted to ask us any question, please feel free to ask us through the comment box. We will continue our talk. And if you wanted to contact Veronica or Susie, please feel free to contact through social media, LinkedIn and others. And please support our channel. I'm Dr. Shah Siddiqui from Neurodivergent Business Consortium with my weekly live. And we have Dr. Veronica Price and Susie Grady. They are working non-stop to support individuals because we are the parents and we are the sufferer. and we wanted to make things right. So I will come back to Susie with another topic, that what are the common challenges for a parent to understand mental health in children?
Yeah, so this is a good one. So, when your child becomes mentally unwell, really you're just told go to CAMS. So you rock up at the CAMS department, and I have to say that then you're very much trying to work it out for yourself. So you're trying to work out what is wrong with your child. You're trying to work out what is the CAMS service and what will it provide. And then you're dealing with a huge amount of shame and stigma, both from other people in your family and your friends, but also there's a definite feeling that it must be you that's the problem, or your family that's the problem, that you've somehow caused this. And that generally comes from other medical professionals who can kind of make you feel like you're the cause, you're the reason why your child is ill, you know, you're the issue here, so sort yourself out. And I think all of those are really unhelpful and very negative emotions that you're trying to deal with. So I think the challenge for a parent is immense. I had to give up my job. My husband did his best to look after our other child who was at home. I was largely living in different hospitals around the country, trying to look after my child, trying to understand what was going on. We were also applying for an EHCP, which is the Education Healthcare Plan, because she did not have a school that she could attend any longer. And that's another great rigmarole. And all of these meetings with the NHS or with the education people, they all happen in the middle of the day, and they're generally about 2 to 3 hours long. So it's impossible to hold down a job whilst also attending all of these meetings, dealing with your child who's living in a hospital or a tier 4 CAMS unit, whichever. It's incredibly difficult, and it's a challenge that I think unless you've been there, you really have absolutely no idea what on earth it's like. And I think I personally think that all mental health professionals and anyone that works in the NHS, to be honest, should spend one night in an A&E department on a floor. And then the next day, they should be given a questionnaire to fill in, say, I don't know, any form. Just give them a form to fill in and see how they do. Because I think when you're sleep deprived, you're worried sick about your child, and then you're expected the next day to face a barrage of medical professionals who come at you with different questions, ideas, drugs, whatever it might be. I think it's a huge amount that any parent is expected to deal with. And then you just get labelled as being mad. Well, you have gone slightly mad because you've not had any sleep for 24 hours. So, yeah, I wouldn't underestimate the challenges facing parents.
It's like if I share my experiences, being an Asian person, in my country, they level autism and this spectrum, neurodiversity, as madness. You can cure these things. And I know with my experiences that genetic mutation, you cannot cure it. You cannot change the genes. It will not cure. And some people, they ask, okay, it is autistic. Oh, is he in treatment to cure it? When people ask these things, it's sometimes heartbroken because they don't know, and they will label you, okay, he's mad because he's talking the thing that it shouldn't happen. He's talking the thing that the society is not ready. So in that aspect, in terms of mental health and others, Veronica, I think you have a lot of experiences. You working for the council to support neurodivergent individuals in post-Mouth southeast of England. So, what you have seen and how important it is to understand mental health in children, and what are the common specifications?
It is, of course, terribly important, and every survey, every questionnaire that's ever been done, every study into the sort of priorities for all ages of autistic and neurodivergent people will reveal to you that mental health and the lack of it and the lack of support in it is absolutely top priority. And this comes out over and over again. And we in Portsmouth are liaising very strongly as best we can with the mental health services. Unfortunately, locally, we have Project Fusion going on. Because the powers that be have decided that what we had before, regionally and locally, was not the best way to organise it. So they've bunged us all together. Portsmouth, Southampton, Isle of Wight, East Hampshire. We're now going under one big umbrella, which means all of the services have to be reinvented from scratch, which also means that all the expertise we had accumulated kind of goes out the window. So we are really up against it. But even before this, we know that nationally, it's a tale of woe, and that the NHS support in this area has been sort of serially underfunded and under-resourced for a very long time. So this isn't just a post-COVID thing, but as Susie says, it's been so highlighted. And there are teachers I know who reckon that there will be a cohort of children who may never recover from the deficit of social exposure and learning and so on that they missed during COVID, during lockdown. I mean, I hope that may not be the case, but I rather fear from the numbers that we see and the statistics of those suffering with mental health issues that, this is going to be with us a very long time. So I mean, certainly locally, we're working with the mental health services to make them aware. And I know certainly one particular group in Portsmouth, the talking therapies, counselling, sort of ancillary psychological support, are very, very motivated, very good, and have sought us out, very proactive in trying to get some dialogue with, understanding about the issues for autistic people. I'm very interested, Susie, in your reflections after all you've been through of what you found was helpful in this respect. I mean, both for you and for your child, where you felt good things were offered, a kind of template for a future.
Yeah.
Susie, please.
So, first of all, I want to say that there were many amazing people that we met in the NHS, and I don't want to tar everyone with the same brush. We met fantastic social workers. We had a fantastic CAMS professional from our local area. We had many nurses on the front line who were trying their hardest to understand why my child was behaving the way that she was. So there were fantastic people throughout. But I think the people that really helped us the most were the hospital autism teams. So we met one of those at the University Hospital Southampton and one of them at Addenbrooke's Hospital in Cambridge. And both of them were like light bulb moments for us, because these people come in, they try and understand what the environment is that your child would best suit in a hospital, where obviously you're limited by the fact that you're often put in a side room, doors shut, and people hope that you'll kind of go away quickly. So these people come in and they look at the room, the environment, the food, the drink, the social interactions, all of those things. And they're often people themselves who are either carers of children with autism and they have autism themselves. So they really understand the basics. And often these things are not very costly. They're very simple things that sometimes, would you mind if, for instance, one of the rooms we were in for 2 weeks had no curtains at the windows, so it was impossible for me or my daughter to sleep. Well, could someone just possibly see if there's a curtain in the stores department that we could put up at the window so that we're not sitting here for 2 weeks with no sleep? It's very simple things often that don't cost very much, but it just needs someone to come in who understands that the environment is key for helping my child. So if you can get the environment right, everything will be a whole lot better for the whole team. And the other people in the NHS or within healthcare that really helped were the occupational therapists. And we saw one of those in the second tier 4 CAMS unit that we were in Cambridgeshire. And I think that person, again, was really helpful because they're able to look at all of my daughter's sensory needs and what helps her and things that we should really avoid. Like, for instance, different fabrics. For instance, she hates Lycra. So please don't expect her to wear a Lycra tracksuit because it will send her completely crazy. It'll totally overwhelm her. It's very simple things again, but do you just need somebody who can come in and look at all of that for you and then come up with a plan that the parents or the school or whoever can look at? So I think the OTs and the hospital autism teams both were really, really helpful on this journey. So that's probably where I'd start if I had a child that was possibly displaying mental health issues, and particularly if you turn up at a hospital, you know, unfortunately the autism teams do not work weekends and they do not work 24 hours. But if you're there on a weekday in office hours, say to the ward, please could you put me in touch with whoever your hospital autism team is, because they are popping up now in a lot of hospitals across the country.
Mm-hmm. So Susie, thank you, Susie, as well as Veronica, for sharing your experiences. And I think for our audience, you will have some valuable insights. We are nearly end of our programs, and we're going to be talking some more points how we can deal with mental health in children and what are facilities available there, as well as working with Susie and Veronica. If you wanted to work with Susie and Veronica, feel free to contact them directly through their social media. And if you want to ask us questions, the last 10 minutes, you can ask specifically if you have any question. Because as an autistic individual, as you, if you are a parent or you are an autistic person or neurodivergent person, you have to ask questions. Don't feel free. Don't afraid to ask questions. That what other people will say, what other people will think. We are in this fight together. We will make our situation, we will make our society different for our future generations. So that's why you will see a lot of things happening, and we are contributing from our space. So we need your support, and if you need additional support, feel free to contact me as well as Susie and Veronica together. So my next question would be to Veronica. You know that we have resources, and some of our parents, even they don't know what resources are available. So working in a point at the council, what the best option for our parents to know what are the options available for them, how they can make more aware of the situation they are in. If you could let our audience know about this, some new.
Thank you, Shah. I'm more involved with adults, I have to say, and I think Susie's probably in a better position to know what she might have been offered. I know it never seems to be enough. I mean, there is you know, the third sector provides a huge input, as you know. Unfortunately, historically, who don't have a learning disability are not protected, are not do not have a statutory right to funding. So there's no ring fence funding, and this is hard. This is really tough, and we have managed to set up, but through the forum. And you mentioned Room 1, and I should tell you just a quick bit about Room 1 because I think it's fantastic. But our funding that we get is hard sought. It's from very many different sources. You know, there's lottery funding out there. There's community funding. There's various sort of local pots of money, but they're all very short term. And one thing we've learnt, you know, loud and clear from autistic people is, if you set up a service to support anyone, you know, children, their parents, groups, whatever, peer support, drop-ins, one-to-ones, mental health support, if you start something like that and then you take it away because your funding ran out at the end of the year, it is almost worse than you never had it in the first place. And it's so heartfelt from our local autistic community. And so when we set up something good, we struggle very hard to maintain it. For example, we, through the forum, managed to set up an employment support resource where people, young people, were given assistance in all aspects of applying for employment, both voluntary and paid and self-employed. And they were helped to, first of all, decide what they were after, what they were trying to do with work, then to present themselves well, CVs, writing, going to interviews, the whole thing, and then support in work. We had this for a year, and I think 30 people were assisted. It's now ended, despite some very, very valiant efforts by local people to get more, the funding extended. But the pot isn't there. And as we all know, everyone's struggling. The councils and local authorities are all overspent. And this money is not... you're perpetually chasing. But the third sector and charities, I think, provide a lot of this, don't they? In lots of different ways. And the parent support groups, Portsmouth Parent Voice, which is very active for kids locally. Probably they are, if you were struggling, if you had issues at all, and you couldn't get any help through your school, sort of main social workers. I mean, something like that, any resource like that. Our absolute flagship, which I'm so proud of, which we've set up now, it's been running for just over a year. Room 1 is a one-stop shop, which they have in other places, particularly I know Scottish Autism do these things. And Room 1 is a physical space, at the moment in an office in a single room, but about to move to better premises. It's entirely facilitated by an autistic individual, and it has a schedule every week, which is put out and publicised very well, very effectively. So communication is key, because you've got to know, when you're casting around for some support for a problem, where do you go to? Well, Room 1 for us in Portsmouth is where everything is centred, really. And it has drop-ins, it has groups meeting, it has art and creative events. It is where sessions happen, one-to-one groups, many things, drop-ins, professionals coming in and giving advice and so on. But I mean, Susie, you must have had to look far and wide.
Same question to you. What are the available and how they can get this support as you have experienced?
I think charities are absolutely key, to be honest. I think the NHS is pretty much swamped. Obviously, you have the hospital autism teams, which are there, but you've got to be in a hospital to access them. And CAMHS, unfortunately, at the minute is still struggling after the pandemic, and it doesn't have enough staff, I don't think, to provide support. So, I mean, locally, the people that I've used we've got a very good Mind near us. So Mind in West Essex, they've got a local hub. They offer counselling and support for people and children who are suffering with mental ill health. We've also got PACT, which is our local autism charity. Again, they offer events throughout the week for children with autism, to meet, socialise, to meet the parents, and all kinds of free activities that they offer, including access then to holiday type activities as well. And finally, the charity that I really have to mention for me is Parenting Mental Health, which is an amazing charity. It's online, has a fantastic Facebook community of tens of thousands of parents now across the world. And I find that using that Facebook group, I've managed to ask every single question that I've ever thought of, and some other parent nearly always has the answer for me. So I would say Parenting Mental Health for me has probably saved me, because it just gives me the information that I need, or where to find the information that I need. So, and they also offer a parenting course. So it's a parenting course that people can sign up for through them, and that is based on the work of Suzanne Alderson, who set up the charity after her daughter suffered with mental health struggles as a teenager. So I think they're absolutely brilliant. And finally, one last one, obviously Transforming Care, which is part of the NHS, they have been very helpful with accessing funding for support that my daughter needed when she was very unwell. And I'm now starting to do some work for Transforming Care myself to help other parents who have autistic and or learning disability children or adults. So I think they're a really good part of the NHS as well.
Thank you very much, Susie.
Thank you.
And Veronica. So I will just ask you one closing remarks of each of you. If you wanted to say something to our audience today, or global audience, who will be watching this webinar later, what would you say for children in mental health? Veronica, you please.
I think naughtiness is a thing of the past for most kids, and call an autistic child naughty at your peril. And I think the whole concept of challenging behaviour should be absolutely a thing of the past. It's just, what a kid having a tantrum on the floor, a kid refusing to speak because they just can't do it, and never say that it's selective mutism or selective. Or it is selective, but it isn't voluntary. They're doing the best they can. Give the child a chance. Challenging behaviour has a reason that it's challenging the kid much more than it's challenging you, the observer. So be kind, and just look behind and just imagine what that kid is going through and try and understand. Get to the root of it.
Thank you, Veronica. And Susie.
Yeah, I would echo that completely and just say validate the child, and whatever they're saying, just validate them and show compassion towards the parents.
Thank you, Susie. A clap for our audience as well as our guest speakers. It's been a while. We are talking about mental health in children. We need to talk more, and I will bring our guests to our following events. So many events is planned for this year, and we will talk about mental health. We will talk about work. We will talk about how we can deal specific things or situation. And thank you, Susie, and thank you, Dr. Veronica Price, and to thank you to all of our audiences that spent long time listening what we are saying. Please, we want you to support us, support our Neurodiversity Business Consortium, and as well as let people know that we are creating this support bubbles to support you, to support your children, as well as if you need any educational or business needs. So thank you, Veronica, and thank you, Susie, and to all of the audience today. You have spent a long time, and please feel free to contact us through our social media as well as our website, and we will bring another guest next week. Until then, stay tuned, support our network, Neurodiversity Business Consortium, as well as if you need any support, feel free to contact me and all other neurodivergent or non-neurodivergent individual speakers that's been helping me throughout this year. Until then, see you next week, and I will welcome another guest. And stay tuned, and bye bye.